Some of this is gonna be super basic. Some of it's gonna be too much for you, and some of it's gonna be like I knew all this for some of you. So we'll go from we're gonna go to from 1 to 100 pretty quickly. So when it comes to in-ear monitors within the CrossRoads space, specifically in the auditorium, you're gonna get one of the wireless packs, which I should have grabbed, but I didn't. There's a wireless pack, and on the top, you just turn the knob and it turns on. There's numbers on it. You want that number to be about like a 4 or a 5, maybe a 6 on a bad day. But you want to keep it kind of in the middle. When you get past that point, it actually, one is like really hard in your headphones, but like even worse, really hard on your ears. It can be really damaging to be listening to headphones at a really, really high volume, which for none of you can you see this, but you want to, when you turn it on, you want to put it in the middle, is about where you want it. I've had some times where I've put it even like at a 2, and that feels loud enough. And like I've learned from experience that I actually probably mix my monitors pretty quiet compared to a lot of people, but I put a lot in my monitor because as a leader, you kind of have to like know what everyone's doing. Just like a lot of us discussed in our musician one, if you're not paying attention to other instruments, you can completely sound different. Like the whole, if a bass player plays A and you play C, you're all playing A minor. And that if you're not listening for that as a leader and not hearing that, there's no way to correct it. So there's that. And then on the iPads or whatever unit you're on, I would usually suggest the max you want to ever put it on is 0. You probably want to be like the 5 to 10 is a good sweet spot. Anything above that, you're just maxing everything out. And that's not super helpful. So you're gonna turn it on, you're gonna turn it back to 6, you're gonna make sure your iPad's probably, this main fader is probably at 10. For something like the youth center or the worship room, you're just gonna wanna make sure that the fader on the board is in that realm, or at least unmuted. The iPads that we all use on a Sunday morning or in the auditorium are mimicking what's happening at the board. Like if I move these around, it moves them on the board. And like if you put it together, you can see it moving. The iPads are just used to control a part of the board. The MyMix part is what you need most of the time. So usually I'm playing acoustic. So it says AC Colt and Colton, and Colton's my vocals. And then a drums one and a click one. So you get that page. The second page is usually going to be vocal mics of some sort or any other microphone that we're speaking into. So the blue one, it says TBK for talkback. That's Wally's lovely voice in our heads. It's always turned down until you turn it up. There's drop D, which is not the tuning on guitar, which is awesome. It's this mic in front of us. So if you need to put that in, put it in, but you don't have to. And then there's crowd mics. We'll get further into crowd mics later, but having a little bit of them does give you a little bit of a nice space in your head, but we'll get into that further later. The rest is just vocals. See, like it says Rebecca and Dave and Jenna right there. It is the morning, but yeah. Our third page is instruments. So anything instrument-wise is in that third option. They're all called custom. We know it's not our fault. Third page for us is always going to be instruments, and we'll get further into that as we go. Fourth page is all drums or percussions, and we'll get further into that later on as well, because we'll get more into the concept of having that stuff. Cool. That's kind of your setup stuff. That's what the iPad looks like. That's what it does. Conceptually, the biggest thing when mixing your in-ears is going to be trying to identify what your true needs actually are as you play. Usually a good practice is to have something for a reference of what the key and the pitch are of the song, something for timing, whether it's click or kick and snare, or there's acoustic drums so that you can know where the beat is going, where that groove is going, where the rhythm is. And then something, I suggest that you can feel the energy of the band and of the room, whether that's like acoustic guitar, or some people like it for bass, or like just the room mics to feel like where the energy of the song's gonna go is important to have in your mix. So those three things are kind of the basis of where you wanna start at all times. Most often, you need to turn down things other than turn yourself up. Usually, you have too many things. If you can't hear yourself and you're at a 10, it means that you have too many other things in your monitor. Or like if you're listening to a wedge and you can't distinguish what anyone else is doing and yourself, everything else is probably too loud. So you need to turn down other things more than turn up yourself. One of the best practices for feeling really tight, specifically with in-ears and when we use click, is to turn the click up until you feel the beat, and then use that to keep you glued to the band. Because only once we are like together can we go anywhere with a real song. Is like to be able to use the click as your glue. For everybody, I like the practice of turning it up till you feel it more than hearing it, because there hits a point where you can hear it the whole time, but it's 10 times too loud. Like sometimes I've experienced where like we can hear the click in the house, and then you come backstage and you're like, oh, like I can hear it from the piano player's in-ears, and I'm like on the stairs. And it's like, what? It doesn't need to be that loud. But if you're so nervous about going off time that you turn it up so loud, you probably need to turn down other things and then turn the click to a point where you feel it, where you can kind of head bob to it, where you can tap your foot to it and be able to have that as your bass level and then mix to that point instead of just turning everything up to 10. A practice that I suggest we never get into the habit of, but I've seen it on the iPads before, is in my experience, I never want to see this. This is my biggest in-ear pet peeve, because I know that they just hurt themselves. And like they did a whole set. And you go to the iPad and it looks like this. And you're like, oh, like, of course you had a horrible time. Of course you were like off pitch sometimes. Oh, of course you were off time sometimes, because you just, they're like, I want to hear everybody. So they turn everybody up to 10. And like balanced doesn't mean everybody's loud. And so if you need something to be heard, it means other things need to be quieter. So what I don't want to see is everything up to 10, because that's just scary. Because I feel bad for everybody who's ever had to do that, to hear themselves before. It's the same thing with a wedge though. Like if you're using a wedge and you just ask for everything to be turned up in it, it's not gonna be what you need, because when you're playing with a wedge or in the worship room or the youth center, you can hear other people's instruments from their monitors. One of the things when mixing audio is they say you like turn off the mains and you have to listen to what the monitors sound like before you can mix what the house sounds like. And like I had to do that today because like the youth center uses wedges. So you like mix with that on. So being able to hear what other people's monitors are doing, so you know like I don't need to put more acoustic in this monitor because I can hear it over there from that monitor, and being able to mix through the room, which is nice sometimes because you feel really tight with the person that you're looking at going, I can hear you because I can hear you from your own monitor, which is like, there's something beautiful in that. But there is less of a personal touch, I guess. Another thing when it comes to mixing that gets us a little bit more into specifically with in-ears is effects. And in ours, we're usually only using vocal effects, which says FX, VOX, FX, Vox, which is just our vocal effects. If you're a vocalist, use it. It's just a little bit, adds like a little bit of space into your in-ears. It gets away from this feeling that you're like singing with your ears plugged, because that's like essentially what you're doing when you have headphones. Reverb allows you to feel a little bit more of that, of the room. Feel like you're singing into an open space. So use it for like reverb. The tip and the trick is to turn it up till you hear it, and then turn it down like 5 dB. So turn it up to like, some days it's more than others. Like when I mix, it's probably too much. And that's probably like so probably turn it up to 10 and like drop it till you don't hear it as much anymore. Because you kind of want to hear it and you want it to be just at that point where it's like there but not in your face. Because sometimes when you put too much reverb, you actually cheat a little bit and like you won't sing a full line. Like you won't sing the note as long as you're supposed to because the reverb will carry it. And like that's not what we want to be doing. You want to sing it because the reverb time is actually shorter than you think it is. It also, we sometimes sing a little flat if we have too much reverb. If you have too much reverb in your mix, you're going to feel like, oh, I'm nailing this, but really you're just like slightly flat. So just to taste, so put a little bit in so you feel less in your head, but not to you like hear the effect is kind of a good practice. So yeah, you kind of sing lines shorter and then you use less energy because the reverb feels like you're in the room. So just so you can kind of hear it working and less like your ears are plugged. The other option is to do room mics, and I like to use my room mics just for context of what's happening in the room. So they're on the mic page as well, the vocal page. They're called Crowd. And that's one of the only treats that you get with using in your monitors, because when you're using wedges, you can kind of hear what the room's doing. It does allow you to kind of have a little bit more context for if people are singing or engaging. Be really careful though, because it is a really easy space to hear things you don't want to be hearing or people you don't want to be hearing. Just be aware. You can pan them to get a little bit more space in your mix, but we'll go into panning later. And this is more like on a board level, but if you take some of like the highs out and like a lot of the lows and just let it be kind of like the 5K and up of a mix, it just adds a little bit more of that energy, a little bit more of the house sound through it. And by house, I mean like the main speakers. You can hear that over that. So you can also hear that if you tune your crowd mics in. But being able to put a little bit of that in, it helps your mix sound a little bit more full because you're getting some of the house mix in it as well. But like I said, not too much, just enough for context of what's happening in the room. Some good techniques to use for mixing what you actually need to hear. Because a good overall mix technique I found is like get a good mix. Get like I can hear everybody. I can hear the vocals where I want to hear them. To take that and then just take myself or yourself and turn yourself just a little bit. It's a really good mix with you a little bit louder. It's like really good mix with like the electric guitars a little bit louder, or a really good mix with the acoustic a little louder and my voice a little louder, is a good technique to start. And then there's a way of thinking about mixing in general, is to think of it like a pyramid. And that pyramid changes kind of per genre, but in worship music, it's kind of like vocals are your top of your pyramid, and then you want to hear some sort of melodic instrument, and then you want your rhythm instrument in there, and then at the end you kind of want your special things. Like we talked about ear candy in our arrangement conversation, and you want that kind of stuff. It's less important. A good pattern to follow is to find where you can hear yourself and you can hear the click to the point that you can find the timing and you can feel it. Some guys say like turn the click up till it hurts and then turn it down a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I don't think anything should hurt in your monitor mix or in your wedge mix. But here's the thing with wedges though. You can turn a wedge up so loud that you don't notice that it's hurting, and then you go home and your ears are ringing. You're like, this was too loud. But you've learned it like through pain and not through experience. So if you're in any of our spaces that use wedges, just be aware of how loud your monitor is getting, and like how loud other people's are getting. Drummers are the worst for this, especially in the youth center, because you can turn that monitor up so loud in the youth center. And then you got to deal with everything else. So just be aware that your monitor is probably really loud. And then like as a drummer, you kind of like, the wedge is always like here, and you're just like getting it in one ear. And that's like, that can be really painful. So just be aware, like have things a little quieter. And if you can't hear your monitor as a drummer over the drums, you're probably playing too loud, or at least you're hitting your cymbals too loud, because that's usually what bleeds out your monitors is cymbals. So if you're on the youth center stage or in the worship room and you can't hear anything, it's probably cymbals that are covering your mix up. A good practice when getting what you actually want, though. Put yourself where you need it, and then everything else from then on goes down by like 5%, 10%, 10 decibels, and turn everything down from there. Like I always want, like, I'll mix it in front of you guys. I would put myself at 0 max, and then kind of like everybody else, this is vocally. This would be about 50% lower. And then I would go into my instrument section, which for me would be here. And I would go, because for me, if I'm playing acoustic, it's not actually as important for me to hear it because I can like know what I'm playing and I can feel it. So I would take that and I would probably put that 10 to 20% lower and then click until I feel it, which is usually about there or lower. I usually actually have it a surprising amount lower because our click for some reason can be so loud. It can be so loud. If you're ever on a team and there's no EQ on the click, just EQ it. Some of the sounds that the click makes, like we don't need in our ears. Like you don't need any of these bass frequencies in the ear, from the click. Like it's just making a thumping noise at that point in your ears. So like I usually put it here, and there's something about the 2K frequency on the click that we use that like hurts my ears all the time. So I usually do one of these. And so like I EQ a lot of the clicks so that I'm hearing it more as like a rhythm instrument and less like because it's white noise just chopped up so that it doesn't have like a tonal frequency so that you don't end up like singing to the pitch of the click, which is great, but can also be super annoying. So yeah, if you EQ the click, it EQs the click for everybody. Yeah, just put it in a little bit. Same kind of thing. Use the drums like click. It's just for feel and context. Because like if I'm in that position, I'm probably not putting the drums in my intermix. I can hear it just fine. Like, and if I'm that position, I can hear it through my mic, and I don't need to hear it through my inners. I usually always would put a little kick and snare in, just because that's your backbone of music, kick and snare. Like if we talk about that pyramid in pop music, like I said, kick and snare are like your top of your pyramid. Like it's kick and snare and then vocals. Like that's pop music. Like the kick and the snare are so much louder than everything else in a mix. We don't want to mix our ears like that because we want to feel it, but we don't want to be able to hear it only. So unless you're the drummer or the bass player. Drummers and bass players, kick and snare the crap out of your inners. Myself, what I need to hear, everything else 10% lower, and then from then on, like I said, kick I put in with the click. Kick and snare are grouped with the click in the thinking process. And then everything else, start to take everything 10% lower than that. Like I would probably take the electric guitars and they would be there so I can hear if they are playing in the same key as me and for like feel. And then bass is also a feel instrument. If you're feeling like your inners have no energy, putting a little bit of bass in there helps to bring the energy back. And then this would be my acoustic guitar. And then the violin is like an extra instrument. I would put it about the same time as the violinist. But that's because I don't actually need to hear what the violin player is doing after rehearsal. I need to know that they know their part, but I don't need to be hearing it all the time. So going, what I need to hear, my voice, my acoustic, and the click, the bass and the kick for rhythm of the feel, and then keys, violin as kind of like the bottom level of my pyramid, just to fill the space. And that's just mixing. Pad is a question mark sometimes. Sometimes pad can be super helpful if you're a vocalist because it's a consistent pitch. So you always know what your root note is, what your tonic is, what does Andrew call it? Your resting tone. The pad is going to be your resting tone. So if you're a vocalist, putting a little bit of the pad in there so you at least constantly have a reference to what the key is really helpful. If the pad is too loud, or like anything above 20, or like minus 20 in my opinion, it's probably one of the items that's going to muddy your mix up the most. If you're using wedges, I wouldn't put any pad in a wedge. There's going to be enough like in the room to fill the space. I'll put a little bit of pad in my ears just to make sure that the pad's in the right key, because that can get forgotten sometimes. And it's really hard to correct that. So just putting it in your ears to make sure it's in the right key is all I do for. Is all I would put it in there for. Yeah, bare minimum, click and or kick, some sort of rhythm instrument, some sort of pitch reference is the bare minimum that you want in your in-ears. Put yourself loud, then everything else moves down in importance by about 10%. You still want to hear everybody else because the beauty of music is that you play it with other people. So you do want to hear other people in your mix, but you don't want so much of the other people that you can't play your instrument confidently, play with those people confidently, and or be able to sing confidently because you can't hear a reference pitch because you have so many other things in your monitor. And then from then on, you kind of want to be just paying attention to like who's leading what song and what your job is in that song. At least as a vocalist, knowing like, okay, I need to sing harmony, but I don't want to sing the same harmony as this person. Like me and Merm would probably steal harmonies from each other like all the time, and like being able to hear her is important to know if I'm singing the same thing as her or not. Cool. I'm gonna move on to just a couple of best practices that will help you get a good mix and feel like it's where you need it to be. In ear specific wise, getting a good mix with both ears in before ever taking an ear out is the way you want to do it. And primarily, if you can constantly be wearing both in-ears, that's the way you want to be. That means that your crowd mics are in the right spot, the click is in the right spot, and if you are ever going to take out an ear, or you're prominent, like going to take out an ear probably, if you pan the click away from that ear, just even so slightly, is a good practice. And when you do take out an ear, flip it behind you. Because if you're taking out an ear, you're probably a vocalist or a leader, and you're doing it to like hear the congregation, and the congregation doesn't need to hear the click. So panning it to the ear that you're not going to take out. Yeah, pan it to the ear that you're not going to take out, and when you do take it out, take it, put it behind you, because what we do is we take our ears out and we put it like right here, and we're singing, and it's like just as close to the microphone as our voice is. So taking it, putting behind you. Drummers get the gracious opportunity to never take ears out because they'll be deaf. So don't take your ears out if you're a drummer. It's nice for like congregational moments, and like feel free, like if it's a vocals only and the congregation is singing, take an ear out just because we love our people. Like we love to hear our church sing, and we should. Like we want them to sing, and that's like what we do. Like it's why we do worship leading. It's why we sing, so that we can sing with other people. Like the greatest thing as a songwriter is getting to hear other people sing your songs. Like I got the greatest encouragement from my daughter the other day. She's going to bed and she's like, "Can you play that like Amidst the Darkest Day song?" And I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, what do you, like she's screaming this at me at this point because I've tried like 4 songs and I don't know which one she's talking about. But I wrote this song when I was in university called Praise Him Anyway. and the like starting of the verse is amidst the darkest night amidst the darkest night. I'm forgetting at this point. But that's what she kept saying. She's like, play the darkest night song. Play the darkest day song. I was like, what do you mean? But she wanted to like hear my song, like a song that I wrote, that I recorded and released. And she just was like, I want you to play your song for me before like I go to bed. And I was like, oh, that's like kind of precious. But like, that's what we love, is like, we like to hear people sing. We want to lead people to a space where they can sing. So like taking one ear out for those moments, totally good. Taking your ears out just because you have a really bad in-ear mix is bad. Get it to a point where you're like, I'm really proud of my in-ear mix, and leave both ears in and just like love it. Because us as worship leaders, which we should all consider ourselves, if you're on the platform with a microphone, you're a worship leader. If you're on the platform playing an instrument, you're a worship leader. And just being able to like, some of us lead the team, and some of us lead different, but we're all leading people in worship. So being able to, fully engage with our own team, being those on the platform and those we are leading, taking those moments where you know that you have to be tight with them, and then we can be a part of them as well. So mix with both ears in. There's also a thing where if you take one ear out for too long, you end up turning up your pack because you can't really hear yourself, because your mix isn't the greatest and it's just in one ear, and then you end up damaging one of your ears. And that's like pretty sucky as a musician to go through life and then get to be like 40 and go, oh, I just hear ringing all the time, and like I can't listen to music and enjoy it. One tip for leaders or band leaders, those who have to like listen to everybody during your rehearsal, if you can turn up everybody in your mix through rehearsal and like being able to hear everybody, and then do what I was talking about putting yourself a little bit louder and turning everyone down. So to go, okay, I have a good mix, I can hear everybody, I can hear myself, that's good. Taking that approach and then turning everybody else down 10% when you go live. So that like you're really confident, but you know that everyone else is good. So get a good full band mix, and then after rehearsal, turn everybody else down about 10%. Just 10 to 20%, and leave yourself up so that you're super confident. It allows you that space to still hear them, still be confident, but not so loud that you're listening for their mistakes. It's more that you know that they're there. So that's one tip that I have learned that's been super helpful. Some other good in-ear tips and tricks come in the world of like, get good headphones. Like the ones that the church have are great, but if there's one thing that like makes you feel like you own playing on worship teams or being in a band or whatever, it's owning your own pair of headphones. That like, you know, every time when you walk in, the EQ settings that you like for your instrument and the headphones, and being able to do that makes you feel like you own it a little bit more. And then you've put a little bit of an investment in. It's like a decent pair of headphones costs $100. And by headphones, I mean in-ear monitors. Don't just go get headphones. Get like real IEM in-ear monitors that can sound good. If anybody comes in and they have Apple AirPods or like the stringed AirPods, please direct them to where the in-ears is. Apple AirPods don't make the frequencies that we need to hear, and they also need the pack to be at like 10 to make them sound loud enough, because they're not isolating. And you need isolated headphones, because then we can listen to it a little bit quieter and it doesn't bleed through everything. So get a good pair of headphones is a great start. When it comes to pack level, like I said, 4 to 5, and that way, like if something gets a little wacky live and you don't have time to touch the iPad, you can like turn your pack up a little bit or turn your pack down a little bit and be able to adjust that wise, because we're not always able to touch the iPad. Like if you're a center vocalist, this is going away. Like you want to get your good mix and be really confident, don't touch it, and just go put it in the back. Same, like I got into the practice of making Wally give me another stand for my iPad, because I'm bougie like that, so that I can like move it to the side and it's on in front of me. Because sometimes if it's in front of me, I'm gonna touch it and I'm gonna play with it. Like I could mix all day long. because I like it, and I like to make it sound good, and I like to have fun with it. But some of it is just like play with it. Like at a rehearsal, like move some things around. See what it's like at rehearsal if you pan the vocalist that you're singing with to one side, or see what it's like as a piano player to tune the electric player to your other ear and be able to hear them a little bit more clearly. So just experiment with it like this for the times of rehearsal and Sunday. This is yours. This is yours. Take care of it, but also two, like use it. Like don't be afraid to touch it. We've entrusted you with it. So mess around with it a little bit. We talked about vocal effects a little bit. Crowd mics are gonna really help you to connect with other people. But like I said, sometimes some people sit front row that you probably don't want in your in-ears. And if you put too much crowd mic in and move your stand to the back, there's no saving you. Like you can look at Wally and go, all you want, but that doesn't mean he's gonna know what you're talking about. Yeah, so there's that. Some of you were here when we used to have like a monitor rep sometimes, or like a monitor mixing. It's a beautiful world, but you have to know how to talk with them and like be able to do. That's where you get like hand signals. Like I don't know if you guys had click when you guys had the monitor mix, but like we always said like this was click or this was click. You like did this, you did this, and then you did this or this, and you did this, or like we'll look at the drummer sometimes, and I'll go like this, or like hear the click. Or we had one Sunday where the click started, and I don't know how we did it, but like we started, the click was in 6 and the song was in 4, and I'm looking at the drummer going, this is in 6, this is in 6, and he's like, oh, and like we like fixed it live. So like with this iPad whole setup, you don't have to do that. You don't have to rely on it. But yeah, don't put too much crowd mics in there, but use it for space. And that will like help us connect with people. And that's kind of the beauty of it, is that you don't have to feel like you're singing with your ears plugged. You can feel with reverb and the crowd mics that you're in a space together. Yeah, and really like bare bones of what you need is something for the beat, something for timing, something for melody, harmony, some sort of like pitch reference, and then something for feel. And if you can have those 3 things, you're in a good spot. And then like everything else is for the joy of music at that point. But those are kind of my things. And yeah, anybody else have questions or tips for the group? When it comes to like wedges, there's, yeah, like I said, you got to be really attentive to what other people's monitors have, because a lot of the time it's just loud. Like if you play in the worship room, it's just loud, and there's not much you can do about it. But yeah, any tips, tricks anyone else has experienced that they want to share with the group or the young group? Bud, you got anything to add? Anything that I've said in the past that I forgot this time? No? Okay. Questions? Comments? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Turn yourself up till you're confident, and then everyone else is 10% lower than that. And that, like with vocalists, it's really good to think like I need a reference for melody, and I need to know what the other harmony is singing, so I'm not singing the same thing. And then like panning helps with that as like a vocalist. Yeah, like panning the other vocalist to like one side so that you know like I'm in the middle and they're over here. Yeah. 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 Because really, this should be like, this. Right? Because Rebecca would be on the keys. Self-told that she plays keys and sings at the same time. Yeah. So I would move them positionally in that case. And it's the same thing with like talking to one another within the arrangement of just like, sometimes you can't hear them very much. Just like ask what they're singing. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah, I would make a generic mix like first. Like first thing I do when I walk in is put myself at 0, and then my acoustic guitar like usually like 10% lower than that, because that's what I would want. I want my voice loud, my acoustic 10% lower than that, and then everything else 20% or more lower than that, because you can set all that beforehand. And like we gain structure at the back so that you're not like, this fader actually does feel like that. And this is like a visual representation of what you want to be thinking you're hearing, especially with wedges. Because when you're in the youth center, you actually have to be like, okay, like I'm thinking that I'm hearing the vocals the loudest right now. Or I think my acoustic is the loudest right now. And then mixing in that like 5%, 10% from there, because you don't actually have like a visual of what your mix is doing. But in here we have like a visual of like, oh, I know my fader is the highest up. Or like, I know that this is where I like the click. So you put the click there. That kind of thing. You can do all of that beforehand. And then sound check is your spot. Like you really want to get, you want to, like when Wally's asking for bass, you want to be turning up the bass fader. And when Wally's asking for acoustic, you want to be playing with the acoustic fader. Same thing with your voice. When you're in like, for sound check, you really want to sing. Like it's the worst. I get it. Like it truly is the worst to be like, well, I'd be like, hey, can you check? And all you really want to do is go like, hey, like check 1, 2, 3, check. And then you want to be done. But like if you can step up to the mic and you sing, because then you can sing a little part of the song, you can put the fader where you're like, I feel really confident with that. And then when you start that first song, you're confident that you can hear all the things. Because a good practice for us leaders is to be able to play the first song and then tweak your in-ears a little bit and be done. And like that'd be great if we could all take one song to mix your mouth. It's not gonna happen. Like you're gonna tweak throughout the night. Also be aware that like sometimes if you do too much tweaking at the end of your rehearsal, by the time you restart on Sunday, it's probably you've done too much tweaking, and you're probably like you were tired at the end of rehearsal, and now you're like ready and awake in the morning, because 7 o'clock I'm fully ready for the day. You've probably like tweaked too much, and it's probably going to sound worse. So like tweak throughout the beginning, and by the end you like don't want to be touching it anymore, so that you can walk in on a Sunday and just go. Ideally, your ears wouldn't have changed from Thursday to Sunday, or rehearsal to performance, whatever term you want to use. So yeah, sound check and first song, or end of first song. And then same kind of thing, like don't be shy about being like, hey, like, Shane, can you play a little bit on the acoustic for me? Or like, hey, bass, can you play a little bit? Just because that is like, that's your time. So take the time. We have 1 minute and 35 seconds if you have any questions. Last chance. Cool. Thank you, guys. And yeah, like I said, like if you guys ever have questions with monitor stuff, or like you guys just need help, I'm happy to help in whatever way. Rebecca's laughing because I've mixed her in-ears twice now, so it's fine. My in-ears suck. Yeah. Yeah. Usually, like I said, it's not about turning yourself up, it's about turning other people down. Same thing.